Action!
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Grudge Report, where we talk about the Foundation. And today we're going to talk about the season 1 finale, which is season 1, episode 10, called The Leap. I'm Margaret Reeb of the SETI Institute, and I am joined as always by Franck Marchis, who is a senior astronomer at the SETI Institute and chief science officer at Unistellar. And like I said, we're going to talk about the season 1 Foundation finale. So if you aren't all caught up, turn back now. Be sure to come back because we're going to spoil and overanalyze it this episode. And then for the last couple minutes of this Grudge Report, we're going to talk about our very well developed and deep thoughts on the whole season. So we'd love to hear your thoughts too. So listen to this conversation and leave us comments below. Franck, here we are. We've made it through the season. We have, I think, 3 major plots to check in on. What's going on Terminus?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Let's start with that.
Trantor, and then what's going on at a location that I won't talk about right now, even though everybody listening should have already been caught up. So let's talk about Terminus. I think we have to start with Harry.
Yeah, we have to. We have to put this on the side quickly, but we have to talk about Harry. So go ahead, explain the story, and then I may go through the science.
Well, at the beginning of the last episode, we learned that Harry, or some part of Harry, or some Harry entity is in the vault. And that's where we pick up with this episode immediately. Harry talks about how when he was killed, he was put in this pod of his own design, and the pod somehow broke down his body and picked up some materials along the way to form the vault and arrive on Terminus. So he's obviously not a clone, but it seems like he's some sort of semi-Harry kind of living thing that is tied to the vault. Right? And he shows up and he forges an alliance between 2 entities, the Anacreons and the Thespians, who have been at war for centuries. And they decide, have a kumbaya moment, and they decide to work together to overthrow the Empire. So there's a lot to unpack there. Let's talk first about what is Harry?
So my interpretation, and I say that because we see this kid, I forgot his name, but I think he's gonna come back a lot in the show.
Oh, Polly, he's a character, yeah.
And he touched him, and we can see when he touched him that there is some kind of perturbation, right? So he's not made of matter like us. He's probably a projection. He's a projection coming from the vault. So my interpretation is that you say we don't know how this happened, but we do know he swallowed a pill which contained, he said that, millions of self-replicated machines. So those will be some kind of nano machine, minuscule. He swallowed them, and those machines basically used his body and the entire how do you call this, the sarcophage that he designed.
The sarcophagus. Mm-hmm.
Yes, to kind of replicate themselves. And they had a goal. And the goal of this machine is to create the vault. And the vault is a machine, is a gigantic machine, which probably has the potential of projecting an image of Harry Seldon and projecting a message that he has pre-recorded. Or is probably an AI, in fact, and he has a consciousness of Harry inside. So,
I think he's AI because he seems to be having conversations with people. Because I had that thought too. So I agree with you. I think he's an AI.
So the difference of the book, in the book, there is recording of Harry coming at regular time. In this case, we have an AI, which is in a vault, that comes and goes. He's leaving. At the end, he say, "Well, I'm leaving. I will be back for the next big crisis." So this vault is somehow monitoring as well what's going on in the environment. He mentioned that as well, saying the Anacreon arrival triggered my
consciousness
awakening.
waking up.
Yes, exactly. So he's leaving, and he's gonna come back for the next big crisis that he has already kind of planned. And he knows with the psychohistory that is going to happen, and he will come back again like the voice of God, giving us some advices or pieces of advice or some kind of comments about who's doing well and who's not doing well. I mean, I don't like this part, frankly, but I do like the creation of the vault, the concept of the vault itself, which I think it's a very cool idea. I don't know who wrote that in the show, but congratulations to the person who invented this concept. I think it's great.
And the visuals of this were great as well. I thought the visuals were really good.
The vault is absolutely amazing. I mean, the design, the fact that it's floating, and this separation. Okay, so there is something that Harry said in the story. He asked where is Gal. That's important. He does realize that Gal is not around, and this is a problem for him, I think, because in his psychohistory he had probably planned the existence of Gal on the Foundation. So that's one thing that in the next season will come back probably. And then I would say like the big reveal. There is multiple reveal in this episode, but the big one is the fact that he revealed the true nature or the true role of the Foundation. Which, go ahead, tell us.
Sorry, I'm going to try and keep my eye rolls to a minimum. This is not my favorite part of the episode. The storyline has always been a little difficult for me to get into. But his reveal is not that the Foundation is about collecting all of humanity's knowledge so that humanity can rebuild civilization when it collapses, to make sure that nothing gets lost. The real goal of the Foundation is to accumulate knowledge, yes, but ultimately to revolt against the Empire and to end the genetic dynasty of Cleon. And I think that's a departure from the book, correct?
No, in the book he also revealed that the Galactic Encyclopedia is not the true nature, the true goal of the Foundation. I don't remember in which part of the book, but we realized in one of the book from Asimov that the Foundation is not only a bunch of academic putting together knowledge. They're more than that. They are people who will somehow lead or help leading an alternative to the Empire when the Empire will collapse. So
sure. I guess that's the distinction, though, that I'm making, is that I guess my sense, which could be wrong, is that they're setting up the next season where the Foundation will try and infiltrate the Empire and actively overthrow them, where in the book it's more, we're building an alternative, like you were saying. We're building a new society. We're, on this outer part of the universe. And so when the Empire collapses, or at some point in that collapse, we can lead the future, right?
Yeah.
This seemed a little different to me. And also, Harry is very annoying. So I didn't like that he lied to everyone, and he wants his own little army of people to overthrow the people he doesn't like. So, but that's enough of my personal opinions on the matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about that briefly before the recording. The reaction of the Foundation is, they feel like they were used, basically, especially the mother of Salvo. She has this moment where she say, I felt that betrayed, basically. He used us. We made all this work for nothing. But
right.
One thing positive of Harry is that he said, knowledge is not what matter. What matters is also the people. So the people he chose, he thinks, will be the people that will be able to lead this new alternative to the Empire. And that's the reason he asked where is Gal, in fact. It's probably for that.
Yeah, because she was a big piece of that.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the next big reveal then, if you want.
Yes. And the next big reveal is Salvo, correct?
Yes, it's Salvo.
So Salvo, we finally understand why she has the mental abilities that she does, and it is because She is the genetic offspring of Gail and Raish. She's not biologically related to her mother and father who raised her, and so she probably shares some genetic hereditary factor that lets her understand the future, or at least feel it. What did you feel about this reveal before I share my opinion?
So first of all, scientifically speaking, there is nothing that show that because you have two parents, you share some memories of their past or anything like this. So that's pure science fiction. We don't carry in our gene memories of people. Okay, not that's something which I think has been disproved several times already, because there is some people believe that, but that's not the case. In science, we don't believe this. It's not been shown. Then the conversation with her and a mother kind of remind me a little bit of the conversation about adoption with you, a biological mother and so on. I adopted my kids, for instance, so that's why I felt a bit, I was paying attention to this. So in this case, the parents decided not to tell her that she was not genetically related to them. Like we used to do in the 70s, where we used to not say to the kids that they were like adopted. And this has an impact on her quickly. You realize that. And that's one of the reasons I think she leaves so quickly. But to defend the parents, I will say that the reason probably she decided not to tell her is because she's the offspring of the woman who is believed to have killed Harvey Seldon. So she will all her life in the foundation, she will be basically the daughter, the genetic daughter of this evil person. So she will not be perceived as a normal human being, and she will not have grown in a comfortable environment. So that's the reason she didn't know, I think. But go ahead, what do you wanted to say about that?
Well, I'd love for somebody to disprove this, and maybe I didn't retain something that happened, but I don't really understand why Mary, I believe is her name, the woman, made that choice.
Well, she decided to have the to have the kids.
Right. Why she picked those donors. Because theoretically, she could have had her own genetic material, or, someone else's. I don't know what goes into the choice. And it's not like you have to choose your own DNA, or if somebody doesn't have your DNA, they're not your child, because we know that's not true. But I didn't really understand that motivation enough for it to be plausible. Why would she pick such controversial people to make, the biological child? And that it just seemed to me like plot magic. It is a really interesting concept to have Gail and Raish's child, and to bring Gail and Salvo together that way. But in the context of the world, I didn't really understand why her mother made that decision.
It is true, she does not explain at all why she decided to have this combination of gene to have a kid. But she could probably have their own kids genetically related to her and to her husband. We don't know, but it's true that it makes the story way more interesting, because now we truly understand why Salvo and Gal are kind of identical. Remember, I keep saying there is something here I could not understand.
Right.
I felt very stupid by not having thought about that, by the way.
Well, I think to our credit, we knew that they were related somehow. Not related necessarily biologically, but at least in terms of their roles and their abilities.
Yeah.
So
but
credit to us for that one. Anything else on Terminus?
Yeah,
I think Salvo leaves, and we'll pick that up later.
Yeah.
But let's move to Trantor.
No. Let's talk about the mega flare, because that's very fishy.
Oh, of course. Why don't you explain that? Because it's very sciencey.
Yeah. So I think that Harry got this idea that if they don't want to have trouble with the Empire, they should use the Invictus, the spaceship which has a transportal propulsion system, and put it on the other side of the sun. I mean, he explains some weird things here, and do some can activate it, and that will produce a mega flare. And this mega flare will be detected from the Empire, and they will know that there is no life anymore on the system because of this mega flare. So here, there is some science here. Beside
break it down for us, Franck.
The mega flare, it's something that does happen on stars, with stars, especially young stars. They do have this kind of extreme activity suddenly, and they basically project a lot of particles in the environment surrounding them, their planetary system. And it does happen for young stars or for M-type stars. We do survey those M-type stars, and we can see those X-ray flares. They call that a mega flare. I'm not even sure if we have some kind of measurement of what is a mega flare. But those mega flares, those very intense one, they could indeed wipe out the part of the atmosphere, remove, for instance, the ozone layer, so destroying the life on the surface of the planet.
So when you say it's common in you said M-type star, a young star, and M's red dwarfs, they're small?
Yes, they're small. Like we do have a TRAPPIST system is a system of planets orbiting around M-type star.
And Terminus orbits around an M-type star, correct?
Yes, that's what we discussed at the beginning of the show, in fact. So yeah, so it's possible that astronomers of the Empire may see that and see the mega flare and say, okay, the entire thing is wiped out. Let's not go over there. I'm not sure. I will personally go over there just to see what happened to these people and to kind of investigate the impact of a mega flare on inhabited planets. But hey, Harry says they're not gonna come because of that. Why not? The fishy science in my mind is that we see the mega flare, right? We see the mega flare coming, and I think there's Salvo is looking up, so she sees it. So how come they're on the surface and she sees the mega flare and nobody's taking shelter? I don't get it. Maybe I missed something here, but I don't get. If they activate a mega flare, then nobody pay attention to the fact that this mega flare will destroy life on the surface of the planet. So maybe I missed something in the story here. It's unclear to me.
I guess because I thought they were going to trigger something in the ship, and for it to appear like a mega flare, they would have some sort of
in the sky, she sees
and sees something.
Solar wind, intensive solar wind. So I don't know what it is. But I mean, we don't have transportation system like the Invictus, so I can write. I didn't find any paper about those, so I can explain to you the interaction of the Invictus with the M-type star. So let's keep it. Let's continue.
Let's just put a footnote as a little fishy in terms of the science. Okay, so Trantor now.
Oh my God, Trantor, go ahead. This is my favorite part of the story.
It's my favorite part of the episode too. So let's talk. I'll give like a very brief overview and we can dive in where we'd like to, but we pick up where we were last episode, where Brother Don has been outed as not a perfect genetic copy of all of the Cleons that have come before him. And there is this discussion. Brother Dusk wants to kill Brother Don and replace him with his, doppelganger that they have just kind of cooking in the basement of their palace. But it's up to Day. And Day comes back and Day speaks with Brother Don, and he speaks with Azora, who was in charge of the face, I suppose, of this part of the revolt. And what ends up happening is everyone Azora ever knew, or ever knew somebody who knew them, I think 1,551 people.
Yeah.
Because the whole conversation is about legacy, are killed. And so all of Azora's legacy is gone. No one will remember her. And she's put in a chamber, deprived of all of her senses, and she will live until her body gives out, which will be quite a long time. And then there is, in a scene later, a discussion between Brother Day and Dusk, and they talk about what to do with Dawn. Day, in an interesting move, wants to perhaps keep Dawn alive, thinks that maybe some of these genetic anomalies are not such a bad idea. Apparently, he might be a luminist now. And Brother Dusk is not a fan of that. They begin to fight. And then Dimrazel, of all people / robots, kills Brother Dawn and says, I am loyal to Empire.
To the genetic
Where should we
dynasty.
begin, Franck?
The genetic
dynasty. The genetic dynasty, not Empire. And what I take from that is she's not loyal to any particular Cleon, except maybe the first Cleon. She is loyal to his legacy. Cleon the first legacy. So where would you like to start? What are your thoughts on all
Oh my
this?
God, there were so many thoughts on this part. Let's talk about Azura condemnation. I mean, it's awful. The relationship, something in the scene is interesting, is that we do realize that Brother Day is not considering Brother Dawn as another emperor. He's considering that he's his son. They have this kind of relationship, filial relationship between each other. And that's something that, because he sees also him growing, so you have an emotional attachment to it. Okay. And that's one of the reasons, I think, is trying to kind of not save him, but accept the fact that he's slightly different to him. And then he has this conversation with Azura and go through explaining to her that he wants the legacy to completely disappear because she basically tried to kill his legacy. So it's his family against her, and his family is very small. It's only 3 people. Mm-hmm. The family of Azura is significantly bigger, and he goes through the list of all of these people that she knows and how these people remember her. And he goes from the teachers, school that she had, to the friends, family, of course, like close family, cousins, etc., and everybody who knows them and so on. And he gave this weird number of 1551, I think, or something like that, mm-hmm. which is a very small number, by the way. I did not make the calculation myself, but you can start counting yourself the amount of people you met in your life, school and so on, and I think it's significantly more than that. I will say
probably
something like 7,000 or 10,000 people kind of knows you somehow, know your existence. The killing, then there is this big scene where he basically do the same gesture he did when he destroyed the 2 planets, by the
mm-hmm. way. That's his kill them gesture, I guess.
Yeah, that's kill them all gesture. All right. Anything else? I don't have much science to say about that, but I think it was a very... Go ahead.
Yes, I will say his conversation with Azura, I liked your point of there's a lot you can unpack here about this genetic dynasty and legacy, and also the legacy of children and living up to expectations of your parents and being molded into something better, maybe even than your parents, or what your parents' expectations are of you. And, having children or raising children is often like, you think of that as, I'm not a parent, so you correct me, but like you think of that as your legacy a little bit, right? Like the mark that you leave on the world. So I thought that was interesting. I feel bad for Azura, but let's talk about Brother Dawn, because I feel even worse for him. Did you expect Dimrazel to kill him?
No, that totally surprised me. So why did she kill him? There is 2 possibilities. I was thinking about that this morning when I woke up on the way to my meeting. One is she's totally programmed to defend the genetic dynasty. And for her, Dawn is an imperfection. So there's no point for him to exist. So she kills him. Or another way, she killed him because she realized that Brother Day likes him. Brother Day likes him. Brother Day has an emotional attachment with him. So she killed him as a retaliation for what Brother Day made her do when they were on Maiden, when she had to kill the maiden, the Sephir Alima.
The woman. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Most, I will say, is the second version is unlikely, but it's kind of, it's possible. It's possible that there is this kind of, in a mind, a robotic mind, she's very having to deal with all this, the programmation that she has, and the emotion happening around her. And you can see that at the end, last scene, when she basically remove a fake skin, and you can see a true face robot. She's losing it, basically. She's losing she's basically losing. It's a sad scene because on the top of that, brother Don comes toward her to be comforting, and she killed him by snapping his neck. What an awful scene.
Yes, because he says, "Don't let them kill me," and she says, "I won't," and it's accurate. She's not letting them kill her. You make a good point. I am more leaning towards she had to kill him because she has to protect the genetic dynasty, and I think part of the reason why she kind of goes bonkers at the end is she doesn't like the things that she has to do based on her programming. Mm-hmm. I personally don't think that she relished snapping the neck. I think, I agree that maybe she got back at Day in a way, but I don't think her programming would allow that. I think that she's had to kill 2 people that she didn't really want to kill because of her programming. Yeah. And she's clearly struggling. I thought the visual of that scene was amazing, and her very steampunky kind of gold brassy face was.
It looks like the robot of Asimov, by the way. When you see the covers of the old book of Asimov, those are the robots that we can see on those. And that's interesting because he influenced a lot of people of our generation, because we grew up watching those covers where you see this kind of robots, the Asimov style robots.
There's one other thing on Trantor that's worth talking about, and that is the fact that the Shadow Master, who I still wonder who ultimately he is faithful to, tells Brother Day, after Dawn's body has been disintegrated, that the rebels not only messed with Brother Dawn's DNA when he was out of the womb, but they messed with the original Cleon.
Yeah.
And so his DNA is not what it was when he was alive, which means that Brother Day himself is an anomaly, and probably Dusk is an anomaly. And so this conspiracy goes deeper than we thought.
So now, if the muzzle killed Brother Dawn because he was not genetically perfect, we have a murderer, an assassin, in the nest of the Empire. Mm-hmm. She could kill all of the clients, basically, and say, we're going to have a start from scratch, but from what? Where is the original?
Yeah. Or, I'm sure that they mess with the DNA of everything, but could you go to, the third clone and replicate his DNA because it's still a perfect replica of the original?
Yeah. And they stupidly disintegrate completely the body of each of the Cleon when they die, when they end their life, so they cannot go back to the original. They lost basically all of them. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. If we don't know the result of the genetic test for Brother Dusk, so maybe this happened before Brother Dusk. So maybe Brother Dusk is the only emperor, the original emperor.
Which would mean that Day might kick the bucket.
Sorry?
And it could mean that, because Day says to the Shadow Master, doesn't he say, don't tell anybody? Like, don't share this with anybody. But again, that's what made me think, well, who is the Shadow Master loyal to? Because he helped Dusk figure out what was going on with Dawn. So, this storyline is the most compelling to me. I find it very interesting and very, I like Demerzel a lot.
And he's not the one coming from the book, by the way.
That's true.
The genetic dynasty was not in Asimov's book, so.
At least this. Oh yeah, that's right. There were no clones. No. There was not a genetic dynasty. There was just the Empire. Oh man. Okay. Anything else on Trantor before we move on to the final?
No, let's move on to the final.
So, big surprise, hopefully for no one watching, because you've all seen this. We end up on Synax, because that is where Gale, after 138 light years, and so we're in the future now, she ends up on Synax. And lo and behold, what she thought was going to happen happens. The sea levels rose. There's really no sign of humans. We get a very cute scene with manta rays, and I was very upset that she was mean to them and told them to go away because they were very cute. But then, in the midst of her landing on her planet and realizing that there may not be anybody there, she sees this blinking red light, and she dives into the water and finds some sort of pod. And who does she find inside the pod, Franck?
Salvo, the cryogenic version of Salvo, who basically she wakes up Salvo, and Salvo arrived with the spaceship when she left Terminus. She crashed on the planet, and that's why she has been in this cryopod for probably 100 years. We don't know the time it takes to go from Terminus to Synax, by the way. So we have no idea how long she has been into this. And she reveals that she's on Synax because she wanted to see someone, to meet someone, and the someone is Gal. So the two stories finally meet again. And finally, we have Gal meeting a genetic daughter. I need to think about this one. Gal meeting the genetic daughter, Salvo. And Gal is younger than Salvo, by the way, because she was cryogenetically, she's traveling in the cryogenic tank. Help me with this word. And she, when she arrived, she's probably younger. So it's kind of a weird scene. But before talking about that, I really like the scene on Synax because we see basically that the civilization of Synax disappeared. Obviously, the cities or the village seems to be abandoned for quite a long time. Remember that Synax was a decided civilization that basically turned toward this extremist religion, and they decided to ban science, math, and just follow this religion, and hoping that the sleepers will help them. And from far away here, we can see that the sleepers did not help them that much, because at the end, there is nobody else.
I mean, at least, yeah, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say
Gal is the only.
They didn't help Synax.
Yeah, Gal is the last Synaxian alive, probably 120 years later.
That's an interesting question, because would Salvo sort of be? She would be of Synaxian heritage. But she's definitely.
So I don't know what happened to the Synaxians. Did they say this when they finally saw that they were losing the planet because of the rise of the water? Did some of them finally decided to do something and leave the planet and live somewhere else, or they still continue to adore their semi-gods and drawing people who try to tell them what was going on until the last one disappeared? And this is a very good lesson for life, by the way, and for civilization. Sometimes you have to wake up. About the manta ray.
Can I say something about that? Because it's interesting to think about this in the context of the Great Filter, which is this concept of, if life does happen in the universe, there's probably a step that's really hard to get through.
Yeah.
Between, from becoming primordial ooze to a very advanced civilization, there's probably a lynch point somewhere where it's really hard, and we don't know what it is. But the Great Filter might be understanding scientifically how your actions impact your environment and how to secure a growing population's survival when the population is affecting the planet. Correct? I would say that's
exactly that. So the Synaxian did not try to understand the effect of the civilization on the planet and then on their own civilization. So basically, they kill themselves as a civilization because of that. One thing that the scene of the manta ray is interesting, because we have the feeling that the manta ray are smart. They have a kind of an intelligence, right? And that's a good lesson too. The technological civilization indeed disappeared, but intelligence still remained on the planet. The last when I say Gal is the last Synaxian, That's a very anthropocentric view of the world. Gal is the last technological Synaxian. If one day we all disappear, us human on our planet, there will be still intelligence. Whales are intelligence, dolphins are intelligence. They have a different type of intelligence. They're not technological, but they do have intelligence. And that's what happened on Synax. Apparently, there is still those manta rays that we saw at the beginning. They're still there, and there seems to be somehow intelligence because they interact with God. So there is hope. Maybe one day those manta rays will become the next technological civilization of Synax.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that in the context of the history of Earth, because there was another prime predator, and the dinosaurs ruled the world until they were driven out of extinction, and from the small little mammals that could still survive in the catastrophe after, humans arose. So yeah, it is interesting to think maybe in the history of Synax, the intelligent primates made their land unlivable, which made way for the manta rays to become very smart and create faster than light travel in little aquariums. It would be very interesting.
We will see.
Who knows? We will see. Maybe they'll get into that.
I love how you describe it. I'm envisioning a manta ray driving a spaceship without harm.
Yes, it's just like a floating. It's a floating aquarium that can travel large distances. Anything else on this episode, or should we dive into what we think about the season overall?
One thing is that something interesting is that Salvo gives Gal he has a name and I forgot the name of it.
The D20.
Yes, the D20, which is a computer. So those two are isolated on the planet without technology. But they have now it has a name.
Magic computer.
The magic computer. Someone's gonna correct me on this, I'm sure.
Is it like the prime something or another? I
Yes.
can't remember.
So maybe there is information in it that's gonna help them to do something. We'll see. At least to get out of the space of this planet, or call the foundation that will have a faster than light propulsion system. We'll see.
So Franck, what are your thoughts on this season of the Foundation overall?
So I would say I think it's a science fiction show that will probably have an impact because it's super good quality in terms of imaging and special effects. The story itself is compelling because it's based on a book which has an impact on some of us. We grew up with the story of Foundation. They slightly move away from the book, but they kept some of the main elements of the book: psychohistory, Harry Seldon, the Foundation, and it's a very complex story. So in the future, the next season, they're probably going to incorporate some of the evolution of the Foundation that we read. It's true that there is some moments which were a bit uninteresting, and frankly, the Terminus battles and all of this was totally useless to me, and I wish we didn't have to suffer through that. But it's because we have to, in this modern world of 2021, we have to have battles no matter what, unfortunately. So to attract visually people. I wish all the story was as good as the one we had on Trento with the Empire, because this is very deep. You have some connection between an empire, an emperor, the civilization itself, the empire. It grows at the impact of some action of the emperors, such as the visit on Maiden. So I personally love the show, and I've been watching the episode twice, each of them, because I have to watch it for myself and watch them to prepare this conversation. And the more I watch them, the more I like them. So that's a good sign. What about you?
It's a good sign. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I thought it would be interesting to go back and rewatch the season knowing where it's going to end, because I have a feeling there are probably quite a few Easter eggs or clues that are subtle that we don't pick up on in all the storylines, unless we have the full context. which always makes a show richer, right? When you can go back and see that they laid the groundwork really well in ways that you didn't even understand. I agree with you. I'm much more interested in what's going on Trantor because I think that those characters are much more layered and interesting. It's very hard for me to relate to Harry because it's very hard to relate to characters that know everything and never really make mistakes and all seem to have like a secret plan that's unfolding. I really want to relate to Salvo, but they don't give her a lot of layers. I don't really feel emotionally connected to her. So, and I just don't think it's feasible for two civilizations that have been at war for so long to magically decide to work together and everything's great. That just doesn't work for me. But I think it's a beautiful show. I'm hopeful that they will kind of double down on the things that are working and clean up some of the things that aren't working for me. Yeah. And I think they did a good job. It's hard to adapt something like The Foundation where it's talking about things that happened centuries apart and it's talking about time in this way. So I think they handled that really well. And I think the science is interesting. We even see a deer on Trantor, some sort of deer-like creature with the eyes. And so every once in a while, they do a very good job of reminding you that this is an alien world and different representations of planets and moons and people. So I like that a lot.
I think the reason we don't like the scene with Harry and so on is because this is coming from the book, and the book was written in the 1940s. I say 70s last time, but no, it's 1940s. So it was written a long, long time ago, where I will say Asimov was a visionary writer, but he was still living in the world of the 1940s, where we believed that one human being could change the world and know everything. And this led to a lot of disasters in the world, having this belief that we can give full power to someone, or this person will know everything. And unfortunately, we still have that in our world. But in the 40s, it was in the psyche of everybody. He could be easily an emperor, basically, in the 40s. Mm-hmm. And I think this is coming from that, the fact that Harry Seldon knows everything, tells the people things, predicts stuff, managed with a snap like this to put together two civilizations who were in war for 400 years. I mean, we still have this, this is remain all thought that doesn't seem realistic to us because we now know how complex human beings are. Just look at social media to realize that.
Yes. And I agree with that. And what I appreciated more about the book, because Harry is the same person in the book where he knows everything and he has his plan, but he dies and he pre-records messages and he does have the answer, but in the book, he cannot outright give the answer. And so he sort of gives clues. And the people who are of that era and they hear his recording, they kind of fight about what it means and what to do. And so but in the show, it feels to me like Harry is the dictator. He's the emperor and he is giving explicit instructions and there's very little room for people to interpret it. So that's less interesting to me. But I think you're right. It's definitely a character of a time when we thought we could put all of our hope into one person who could lead the way.
Yeah, and then for the science, I mean, the special effects are amazing, and there is some very effort to connect to the science of our time. The rings around the planet, Synax, the illumination is very perfectly done. I will say at sunset, you can see the rings brighter on the top and the bottom because they receive more light from the sun. They talk about things of our time, like social issues, climate change, parenting advice.
And I appreciate that they don't sort of wave away how faster than light travel or even approaching the speed of light travel distorts time, right? You can't, like in Star Wars where everybody, which I love, don't at me about Star Wars because I love it, but everyone's hopping around and their time is all passing at the same time for everybody. Yeah. This show does a good job of, that's why everybody's sad when Salvo leaves, because they realize that they're not
gone.
going to see her. Yeah, she's gone. So I appreciate that they were true to the science there.
Yeah, and there is some romance there is a lot of romance now I think about it a posteriori in the show. I don't think there was any in the book.
No.
That I don't remember. So yeah, they try to it's a good way to expand foundation and to bring foundation, the word of foundation, to people of our time, and hopefully encourage some of these people who discover foundation through the show to at least read one of the two books of Asimov to really understand the law of robotics, what is psychohistory, etc. But
yeah,
I liked it. I'm looking forward to see the season 2, and I really don't know when it's gonna be released. Do you have?
Did they greenlight it yet, or no?
So it will depend probably of the budget and. And something I read is that one of the reasons the Trento scene was not the Trento scene, the scene on Terminus was not as compelling and interesting. They claim is because of COVID. Because of COVID, they didn't have a lot of extra. With COVID, they have a lot of restrictions. They record this in the Canary Islands. Most of the scenes are recorded in the Canary Islands, and there's huge restriction because of COVID during the pandemic. So that's why there is like sometimes 10 people on the set, and then they have to artificially add 50 of them. They mentioned that.
Interesting.
But anyway, I don't like that also.
Well, hopefully when they shoot season 2, everyone will be vaccinated and there won't be any more variants.
Hopefully. Okay.
That's go in peace.
Yes.
Get vaccinated. Yes, I'm interested to see season 2 if it comes to be.
All right. So you want to do the show next for season 2?
Sure. Let us know in the comments what you think. What we commented on, what we talked about, what you'd like to see more of. I'd love to know what other people thought too. If people really liked it or, thought it was lacking in some way. Who are your favorite characters? Mine was Azura for a little while, and Dim Rizal is definitely up there. Who was your favorite character, Franck?
Oh, my favorite character. I don't know who is my favorite character. I like Salvo. I like Salvo because she doesn't really know what's wrong with her for a long part of the entire part of the story.
She's rolling with it.
I'm here. I have no idea what's my role in this story. What exactly I'm supposed to do? I'm doing right, wrong, and then she does a lot of crazy things. In a few weeks, she goes to space. Have a first jump in space. She goes to a prehistorical, an antique spaceship. I mean, great. She's very courageous. She's
yes,
a woman of
she
action.
must be well adjusted because I feel like most people would have a mental breakdown if they had that many things rock their existence. But she takes it all in stride. So.
Yeah. And then my second character that I like, and I know you're gonna be afraid when I say that, is Brother Day.
No, I think he's very compelling.
He has something that he completely detached himself from the true human being, becoming this kind of. He says that in this last episode. I know nobody likes me, but that's the only way I can basically control this empire. It's so big. The decision I have to take are so huge that I cannot be emotional.
And I can't care about individuals.
Yeah. And you see that the entire season, the way he is, basically. But he has still this moment where he's become human again, such as when he's on Maiden doing the Spiral Pilgrimage.
Or when he's trying to save Dawn.
Yeah. So that's my two favorite characters. Bye.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. We are a part of the SETI Institute, and by now you probably know what the SETI Institute is, but just in case you don't, the SETI Institute is a science research nonprofit whose mission is to understand the nature and origin of life in the universe. So hopefully one day when humanity is on multiple planets, we won't be confused about where we came from. because we'll be the SETI Institute will help everyone understand. If you're interested in knowing more about the SETI Institute or the Grudge Report, please click the links below. Please leave us comments. We read all of them and we very much enjoy it. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Franck, for having these conversations with me.
Thank you, Margaret.
And we'll be back soon.
Bye, Margaret. Triple blessing to you again. Enjoy Seattle.
I will. Peace.